Have you ever wanted to design your own decorative stitches? Or maybe you've seen decorative stitches on other brands of machines that you wish you had it on yours. On the Pfaff Creative Icon 2, you have what is called Stitch Creator. So you'll find your Stitch Creator option down here at the bottom. And when you touch it, you're going to notice that you're going to get a grid. Now, we have just launched the Pfaff Stitch Creator Masterclass. And I say we because Liz and I took the time because we know people are not using the Stitch Creator to its fullest. People get confused about it. What does it do? How do I do it? And this is actually even a little project that I have done where I took one stitch and then created from it 2 additional stitches. So you can take built-in stitches and then tweak them. We've done a couple videos that you can watch us create stitches and see if this course is right for you, because we actually do a ton. The more we got into this, the more we realized why people don't use this, because they don't take the time to learn it and to practice. So I'm going to actually let the 2 of us give you a quick overview of how the Stitch Creator is designed to work. And then if you are interested in this course, there'll be links in the description below where you can check out more videos on the course or even enroll in the course, because I can go in and just show you quick, but when you really want to explore this more, there is hours of information that we have pulled together to give you lots of ideas. Now, if you're even liking the little striped binding here, those are actually stitches I made in the Stitch Creator to create the look of striped piping, or that little piping hot binding. We've done that, and lots of fun uses with stitches. So without any further ado, here is a quick overview of what the Pfaff Stitch Creator is all about on the Pfaff Creative Icon 2.
Pfaff was one of the original brands that made it so that you could design your own stitches.
Yay.
Back with a 1475, which was in the late 80s, about then. Yeah, it was late 80s. The 1475 came with a magical little box.
I remember that, because that's when I started working at a Pfaff store.
That's when I started working at a Pfaff store, sort of just I had to. But you could plot out little stitch points on the little box and make your own stuff for your machine.
It was a big selling feature.
It was.
Compared to the other brands that we had in the store at that time.
And it wasn't nearly as sophisticated as what we have now, but it's what Stitch Creator turned into, which is now something that we have on the machines that started in the early 2000s on the machine, as opposed to that clunky extra box.
Yes, and now that it's all on screen, you can just open it up at any time and start playing. Or if you see a stitch that somebody else has, your friend has, you can have it too.
The very cool thing is the icons from the beginning of the 2000s are the same icons that we have on the machines now. So once you've learned Stitch Creator, it works the same way on all the machines that it's been on.
Now, just to say, I know the name of our new machine is called Icon. So when we're talking icons,
buttons,
we're talking about the little buttons that you're going to be touching, that this video is going to walk you through what you're going to see on different models.
Right, so it doesn't matter if it's a model that's been out since 2000 or if it's an entry-level midline sewing machine or a top-of-the-line machine. Those button icons are going to be the same no matter which model you pick.
So you're going to be able to watch us create stitches as we teach you what all these cool functions do on all the different screens.
Right.
Meaning that they're all going to look the same no matter which one you have. So if you are in that list, that massive list of Pfaffs that have Stitch Creator, you're going to be able to follow along really easy.
Yes, because it doesn't matter if you have a little screen or a great big giant screen. You might have a little bit more on your great big giant screen, but the buttons are going to look the same.
So we're going to make sure that you know exactly how to use them, and so you're not confused, and before you know it, you're going to be able to create any stitch going forward. So next up, let's just go to the screens and start walking you through what each function or icon does and how you're going to use it.
Depending on which model you have, you first have to figure out how to get into Stitch Creator. So for our examples, we're using a Pfaff Quilt Expression 720 and a Pfaff Creative Icon 2. the machines will all vary as to where you find your Stitch Creator function. In the Creative Icon 2, it's actually going to say Stitch Creator, which is very helpful. On a situation like a 720 or a Creative 3.0, it's just going to have a picture that looks like a stitch with points on it. When you pick it, the nice thing is most of the models are going to tell you on the screen when you're in Stitch Creator, because then you're going to know that's where you're supposed to be. The first thing that's going to pop up is a grid path with a single line, dark line down the center. This is your stitch field. So left to right, this is how wide you can go. Your line down the middle is going to be your center stitch point, and then it's got this nice grid to sort of help you be able to be even when you're building a stitch. If you wanted to manipulate a stitch that's already in the machine, you would go to your stitch menu. On a lot of the models, it'll look like 2 stacks of fabric. That's going to be your stitch menu. No. On the Creative Icon 2, it's going to actually look like a zigzag stitch. You would go in there and you would find the stitch that you wanted to manipulate. We'll just pick that one. It'll pull it into the screen. The first thing you're going to notice is it only has 1 repeat of the stitch in the screen. So each stitch, this is considered a stitch, and all of these little dots are considered stitch points. So depending on what stitch you pick, your stitch point will be different, and there'll be a number that says, mine says 81 by 81. So there's 81 stitch points in this one. On the Creative Icon 2, 68 stitch points on that one. So depending on the stitch you pick, this is considered 1 stitch with 81 stitch points, or how many times the needle is going to pierce the fabric. Right now it's highlighted, so everything is selected, and you can actually go, depending on your machine, a lot of the machines will have this icon here, which is the Select Stitch Point section, and this button here serves 2 purposes. See how it has a little arrow here? So that means it's got more than 1 job. If you're on an icon or an icon 2, those buttons are going to be separated into 2 separate buttons. Select multiple and select all. If you deselect the button, everything is going to turn a different color and it's not going to be as bolded. So now nothing is selected except for you should have 1 stitch point that's different than the other stitch points. There's an arrow, up and down arrow, close to your select stitch point area where you can actually move and jump from stitch point to stitch point. And it's actually going to follow the path of the stitch for you. So if you wanted to go through and see how the stitch stitches out, you could run through that. You can also touch stitch points individually. This is where you're going to really want to make sure you have a stylus or some kind of pointy item that you can really get in close to those stitch points. If you wanted to select a certain portion of the stitch, you would select a stitch point to start on. If you're on an icon or icon 2, you'd select multiple. On another machine, you would just click the button the first time. Then you would run through the stitch and see how it starts to highlight that stitch and those stitch points. Then if you wanted to copy, you could press the duplicate button, which on this machine looks like 2 pieces of paper. If you're in icon or icon 2, you'll want to go to Edit Stitch, and you'll get the menu of other buttons there. You'll see a copy button in the lower right-hand corner. Again, sort of looks like 2 pieces of paper. If you click on that button, it'll duplicate everything that you had selected. Now, if you decided you didn't really like that and you wanted to get rid of it, you could just go in and press your trash can, and it would delete everything that was selected. Now let's go ahead and delete all of those stitch points. So on this machine, we press and hold, and it will delete everything. So now we're back to our blank screen again. If we wanted to build a stitch from scratch, this little button right here, the new stitch point, is going to be how you start that process. In our store, we always call it a fairy wand because it sort of looks like a fairy wand. But every time you press that button, it's going to add a stitch point in. Then you can go in and adjust those stitch points however you want to adjust them, making whatever kind of stitch you want to make. You can move your cursor to different points in the stitch if you forgot to add something, or if you wanted to go in and add something. Now, one thing that's very nice about Icon and Icon 2, as you're building your stitch, it's actually going to give you a running play-by-play of what your stitch is going to look like. If you're on a machine like a 720 or a 2058, you can press OK and go out and see what the stitch looks like. Then just go back into Stitch Creator to manipulate the stitch some more. If we were on a blank screen and wanted to start a stitch from scratch, we would hit the new stitch point icon right here, which looks sort of like a little fairy wand. So if we click it 3 times, we've added 3 new stitch points in. Then let's talk about the wheel. The wheel sort of confuses people. It's not necessarily an XY axis like people think it is. The first number is going to give you the stitch point side to side positioning. The second number is going to give you the feeding length in millimeters from the last stitch point. So what this is telling me is my stitch point is 0, it's right in the center, and it's 2.5 millimeters from the last stitch point, or the last time the needle went into the fabric. So depending on if I move a stitch point, so now this stitch point is to the right, to the positive, and it's now 2.875 millimeters from the last stitch point. So if you ever notice that you add a stitch point in, it will only let you make it so long. Because if you make it too long, then it'll become like a basting stitch and it will rip out. In your Pfaff Stitch Creator, any stitch that you can bring into Stitch Creator, you can turn into a triple stitch. You look for the little icon that has got the 3 times mark next to it, and when your stitch is fully selected, press that icon and it will bold your stitch into a 3 times stitch, making it heavier. You can do this on any stitch that you can pull into Stitch Creator. There's also a function in the machine where you can mirror stitches left to right or up and down. So if we pull in a stitch of an elephant and we want to see the whole stitch, we also have a zoom function. So on this machine, it looks like a magnifying glass. And on that machine, it's just a slide bar. You would adjust the slide bar whichever direction you needed to go so you could get a full view of your stitch. Once you've got a full view of your stitch, you have mirror buttons over here to the side, left to right or up and down, and it'll flip the stitch completely one way or the other. Once you've created a stitch in Stitch Creator, you're going to want to save that. Depending on the model you have, your save function might be a little bit different. We will teach you how to save your design in another lesson.